Foot pegs are not exactly what people tend to think about, but with these, you will definitely want to see them and see that they're capable of much more than you think. Hot off the press, or more accurately, hot off the CNC machine, this is the brand new Enduro Platform for the flex mount system from Motion Factory Racing. In case you haven't seen any of my prior videos showing these things off, Motion Factory Racing makes a foot peg system with interchangeable platforms that move. They have a bushing system with different stiffnesses that allow the platform to pivot forwards and backwards to move with you. But maybe you don't want that. You want more of a solid mount, traditional style foot peg, and with these, we got you covered. Brand new for this year is the Enduro Platform, this square peg with couple of round holes. But there's a reason for this design. It's built for tough stuff. Think mud, snow, even a well-groomed motocross track. You know the kind where it's freshly watered and the dirt's like cake. All of those surfaces are sticky, compact, and they build up. Almost all stock foot pegs, and aftermarket foot pegs for that matter, look like this, where there are many holes waiting to be filled, and cleaning them out can feel a lot like a whack-a-mole game. But when it comes to these, one and done. Let's see what they look like on the bike and show off even more features with this platform. Hey, hitting pause here for a quick second. It's me at the end of the video here to remind you that if you want these platforms or anything else from Motion Factory Racing, go to their website and use code LEXDFOX for an extra 10% off. Back to the install. And in doing so, we'll be replacing my original trail platform that I've been rocking for quite a while now. Now this one is the kind that pivots a little bit, so it has some movement back and forth. Pretty simple process with just a few hand tools. We're gonna start with this 6mm hex to take off the dust cap. Then immediately behind that dust cap is an 8mm bolt, so we're gonna take that out, and then the whole foot peg platform is gonna slide right off. So now we see the spindle that platform rotates off of, and underneath is the bushing. So we're actually gonna take this off next with an 8mm hex. Only thing left is to remove this spindle, but this spindle is held on with some pretty heavy Loctite. So we're going to persuade it a little bit with some flame for about 20 or 30 seconds. Now that that's nice and warm, we should be able to get a 14mm wrench on the side of this and be able to loosen it up. Just be careful when doing this because you just hit it with the torch. It is quite hot. There we go. So now we're back to it. We had to let it sit for a little bit because we had heat on this. It was quite hot, and we also got the threads cleaned up, so none of that old thread locker is in there. And it's really easy to mount things up. As you can see, the mount here has two bolt holes, a big one up top and a little one down below, which correspond exactly to the two bolts provided and the two holes in the peg. So we'll get this started one bolt at a time. I'm gonna start with the top one here, the bigger one, and this one is an 8mm hex key. So now we got the top one started. Before we finish it, I'm actually gonna put in the second one here, so that way everything is lined up properly. Now this smaller one takes a 6mm hex key. I should mention as I'm tightening these up that you should be putting Loctite on both of these bolts, and heavy duty stuff like red Loctite on either of these, because the bike does vibrate and you want to make sure that these actually stay where they're supposed to. I'm not, because I'm going to be taking this on and off. I got to show you a few other cool things to do with this foot peg. There we go. I think that about does it. And there are torque specs for these, by the way. The top bolt is 40 foot-pounds and the bottom is 30 foot-pounds. Looking pretty good. This is a solid platform, and it adds a little bit of length and a little bit of width compared to the stock foot peg. And yeah, I'm sure there's some skeptics out there thinking, oh, it's only held on there with two bolts. The second that thing falls over, they'll snap right off. Oops. It's fine. Motion tests these things beyond their limit, so it's going to be able to put up with whatever kind of wear and tear that you put on it, no matter how extreme. However, it did kiss the concrete, and so it is a little scratched up there, and now I'm realizing that I probably should have filmed this last, not first, and that's why everything is scratched in all the shots you saw previously. Also, now I need a new front brake lever. Yay. But back to the install, where we have it on the bike, but it's a little too smooth up here. Where's our grip? Grip comes in the form of these little bolts here, and I have two different sizes, so again, the customization is there. I have 10mm cleats and I have 12mm cleats, and the longer the cleat, the grippier it becomes. With the weight of your foot on the pegs, it'll actually dig into your boot and help keep you in place as you ride. I suppose you could also rock no cleats whatsoever for a street bike if you really wanted to, and even though my bike is technically a street bike, I want a little bit more grip than that, so I'm gonna be putting in the 10mm cleats. Here you can see the difference in height between the 10mm and 12mm cleats, and if you bust out your calculators, you're gonna find that that's about a difference of 2mm. That's my math degree hard at work there, and I didn't even need to break out the calculator. Did all that in my head. So all these little bolts here go in with a 2mm hex, by the way, and it's also recommended that if you know exactly which length you're gonna go with and stick with, then you should put some Loctite on these as well. You know, something I was thinking about as I'm putting these pegs in is that you can customize this even further by using both lengths on the same peg if you wanted to, something where your foot is positioned a little bit further forward. Then you could put the 12mm cleats in the back row right here, or if you wanted to lean backwards, you could put the 12mm in the front here, so you can have a little bit of tilt whichever way you choose. Seems pretty grippy to me.
Well, one thing I'm noticing right away is that these are very, very vibrating. I was way too used to the rubber bushings on my original trail mount that I've been rocking for over a year now, and I guess I got too used to the fact that they didn't vibrate and I didn't feel it in my feet. I guess that's the trade-off that you go to with solid mounts, and I would have been feeling those same vibrations had I had the stock mounts. It's just been so long that I completely forgot that that was an issue to begin with. 10 mil cleats are doing really well. I can feel them gripping me pretty nicely as my feet go on and off the peg. I'm also definitely feeling the lack of a full brake lever. Gotta get that fixed soon. That was a dumb mistake. Feels stable though. Planted. Quite planted. I think it takes the impacts. Okay. Well, so far I'd say that these are pretty strong, pretty robust, and pretty grippy pegs. Anything you'd want out of a peg, honestly. But the other great thing about these pegs is that that's not everything that you get with this. There is a little bit more.
So let's add some angle to these foot pegs, or camber, with the help of this weirdly shaped shim. Say that 5 times fast. It has a thicker end on the bottom and a thinner end on top, and this can sandwich between the platform and the mount. Easy to add too. You just unbolt, include, and rebolt. So what that camber shim does is put the outside of the peg further up and encourages your leg to go inward towards the bike. Now, this is ideal, especially in an off-road scenario, because when you're gripping your bike, you actually want to grip it with your knees on the side of the bike rather than your hands on the handlebars. These are also designed in such a way that adding camber just adds camber. There are some other aftermarket foot pegs out there that offer camber adjustments, but they do it by adding shims to the bottom of the stop here. So while it does tilt the peg upward, it also tilts the pegs back. Pegs aren't mounted straight up and down, they bend at an angle.
Since adding the camber is more suited for an off-road setting, let's put it in an off-road setting. I even put the bike in dual sport mode. I've only been on the trail for a little bit, but the camber is really helping, especially with actual boots, like boot boots. So the camber only does add about maybe 4 degrees. I measured it roughly. But it's that 4 degrees that just helps encourage your knees to go in and your shins to kind of pinch the bike frame. Every little bit helps, especially for someone like me who's a little rusty when it comes to off-road.
Another thing I'll note with the design of this, since it has a big gaping hole, one of my potential concerns initially was that there's not enough grip here, anything in the middle, to add to that, but it's actually pretty good.
I'm still rocking just the 10 millimeter. I mean, it makes me wonder, like with the 12 millimeters, how grippy are those, and do I really need that? Maybe if you're like in some really slippy, muddy stuff, then it makes a little bit more sense. Again, with the camber adjustments, I feel like it's giving me that little extra nudge, because I'll be honest, I'm not very good at off-road, so I'm still kind of holding on with the handlebars like you shouldn't really be, and more pinching with the sides of your legs. But this actually does encourage, or at least it puts me in the mindset of being able to put them on the side there solidly, and I feel so much more planted on the bike in general, especially when it's all rocky like this and the bike's going everywhere. I can just kind of go with the flow. And again, not once has my boot slipped off the peg. This is just a solid pair of pegs. I think it's decided. This is going to be my off-road setup for pegs anytime I put the dirt tires back on. Just period. End of story. They're that good.
Again, a very solid pair of pegs, but let's be honest, most aftermarket foot pegs are. But with these in particular, the key is that they are rebuildable and replaceable. Let's say you do happen to break one of your foot pegs. Any other manufacturer out there would have you buying the entire foot peg or even an entire set just to replace the one. That's like $100 thrown away. If this platform happens to break on you, you can just buy this one replacement, swap it out, and be on your way without having to pull anything else off the bike. Or maybe you have a multi-purpose bike, Exhibit A, where you want something a little bit more solid and grippy off-road, but want some vibration damping on-road. Or maybe Motion Factory Racing comes out with a new platform, and if you want to get it, you just have to get the platform. There's a lot of possibilities. Thanks to this system, there are 3 different platform options, 4 different bushing options for 2 of them, 1 camber adjustment for the other, and 2 different cleat size options. And thanks to Combinatorics, I can tell you that that is a total of 20 different foot peg configurations available. That is my math degree hard at work. So to get your very own configuration of foot peg, be sure to check out motionfactoryracing.com, where you can see that the brand new Enduro platform is now available on the site, and go ahead and use code LexDFox, get yourself 10% off of that order. Now that I think about it, I probably should have said that a little earlier on in the video. Hang on a second.